That report by Mumuru Bajan takes us to our first break. We'll be back with news from outside the Gambia.
Gambia, Damane, Bentum Reume Ote, the Gambia Radio and Television Services, GRTS. GRTS Staff Association, Jingitali, His Excellency the President, Chair Professor, Al-Haji Dr. Yahya AJJ Jame, no fast Kane Sumbu, Jingadlum Banquet Dinner, a grand dance with a difference. Bufikeja Amsufi Muse Amsach, on the 23rd of May, and on the 24th of May 2014, Setiki Penchami Hall, featuring the now happening Queen of Malaka, Titi Safnepa, Titi, Tamane Titi, Pare Rajahe Penchami Hall. You've never seen her on stage like this before. Titi, by popular demand. Dipari Joy Mostoli, Anak Aindanan artist VGB Reumi. Tickets, Gala, Platinum, $60,000. Diamond, $50,000. Gold, $40,000, and the individual $1,000. Grand dance ticket, $500 and $300 flat. For all reservations, please call 991-199-203-1850-682-9536. Signureu, Gambia.
Welcome back. An attack blamed on the militant Boko Haram group has claimed 2 lives in Cameroon's extreme north. Reports suggest that the Islamic group has a prayer bases in Cameroon, but authorities in Yaoundé are not keen to allow Nigerian troops to cross their shared border in pursuit of the militants. The Cameroonian government has meanwhile pledged to cooperate with neighboring countries to defeat insecurity. We have more in the CFI report.
The border between Nigeria and Cameroon, police patrols have been stepped up, especially the Rapid Intervention Brigade, the elite unit of the Cameroonian army. The activity comes 4 days after the attack by Boko Haram radicals against the police station in Kuseri, in Cameroon's extreme north region. Largely featured in the local press, the terrorist attack resulted in 2 deaths, including a member of the security force. Local people were in shock. I feel like I've been attacked, and I'm angry, as if my country were threatened by a terrorist organization, and I'm especially critical of the laxism of the government. This was not the first time that Boko Haram carried out an attack in Cameroon. The Islamic radicals have used Cameroonian villages as reserve bases against the Nigerian army. This professor is writing a paper about the weakness of Cameroon against the rising strength of the Boko Haram group. He says the Cameroonian security and defense forces must develop a new strategy against the radical Islamic group. I think that the means of fighting must be adapted to the threat posed by Boko Haram. That way the fight can go forward and get more convincing results. For the moment, it's tough to deal with an enemy that is invisible. It's always there, but based nowhere. After denying it for a long time, Cameroonian officials are finally admitting that the country is suffering from the weak security situation in the northeast of Nigeria. For reasons of sovereignty, Cameroon refuses to give Nigerian troops the right to enter its territory when pursuing Boko Haram fighters. However, Yaoundé says it does want to cooperate with Abuja. I want to say that we are fully ready to cooperate in goodwill with all our neighboring countries to fight against cross-border crime. The Cameroonian territorial minister has stepped up visits to the extreme north region. His goal is to convince local traditional chiefs to tell security forces when Boko Haram members are in their villages.
France has announced a troop surge and a new strategy to combat militancy in Mali following the death of a French soldier near Mali's Tessalit region. And officials are counting the votes cast in today's parliamentary election in South Africa, but the ruling African National Congress has a seemingly unassailable lead. For more on these stories and others, we go with this roundup of news.
Killed in northern It is the 8th military casualty in Mali since Operation Serval was launched in January of last year. The soldier was killed during an attack last night in the region just south of Tessalit. Jihadist groups are still very active in northern Mali, posing a threat not only to the government but to neighboring countries. The French Minister of Defense announced a fresh deployment of troops in the area and a change of strategy. What is new is that they will be concentrated in Gao. 3,000 troops will also be deployed in what I call the Sahel-Sahara danger zone, where all types of trafficking occur. When asked how long the new operation would take, Mr. Le Drian said, as long as necessary. While many South Africans have expressed dissatisfaction with the ANC, the ruling party is set to win the general elections. Preliminary results from 50% of polling stations place the ANC in the lead with 62% of the votes. The party is almost certain to win by a comfortable margin, placing it at the head of government for another 5 years. Strengthening economic ties between China and Africa topped the agenda at the Abuja Economic Forum. The importance of the conference has been overshadowed by attacks by Boko Haram in recent weeks. China has promised to help Nigeria in the fight against terrorism. China's Premier Li Keqiang met with several African leaders to discuss potential projects. Valerie Amos, the UN Undersecretary for Humanitarian Affairs, visited a camp in Najema, Chad on Thursday as part of a visit which aims to raise relief aid. Chad is struggling to accommodate more than 100,000 refugees who fled the violence in the Central African Republic.
President Vladimir Putin has asked pro-Russian activists in eastern Ukraine to put plans to hold a referendum on autonomy on hold, but the pro-Russian camp seems to be having none of that. Organizers of the vote say the referendum will take place as planned. The Russian president's unexpected U-turn comes against the backdrop of ongoing military operations to dislodge separatists from government buildings in eastern Ukraine. We have more in this report.
In the east of Ukraine have decided to go ahead and hold a referendum on autonomy planned for the 11th of March. Earlier, Russian President Vladimir Putin called for the vote to be postponed to allow dialogue and announced the withdrawal of Russian troops from Ukraine's border. But Ukrainian separatists have decided to ignore the Russian leader's declarations.
There was a vote, and the decision not to postpone the referendum was passed 100%. I'm sure that if the referendum is not held on the 11th of May, we will not be able to hold it at all because we will have lost the confidence of the people.
In the east of Ukraine, troops are still fighting to regain control of official buildings and terrain, particularly in Slavyansk, the pro-Russia separatist stronghold. During a tour of inspection, Ukraine's Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk described the Russian leader Vladimir Putin's calls to delay the referendum as hot air.
I think the Russian president needs to be informed that no referendum was planned for the 11th of May. If terrorists and separatists supported by Russia got an order to postpone something that doesn't exist, it's their affair. If Russia stops financing and supporting them and withdraws troops, then the situation will stabilize.
In Warsaw, NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen, meeting with Poland's Prime Minister, said there were no indications that Russia has withdrawn its troops from the Ukraine border a day after President Putin claimed to have done so.
Time now to take our second break. We'll be right back.
Gambia, Damane, Benjum Reume Ote, the Gambia Radio and Television Services, GRTS. GRTS Staff Association, Italy. His Excellency the President, Chef Professor Al-Haji Dr. Yahya AJJ Jame, no fast Kane Sumbu, Jingadlum Banquet Dinner, a grand dance with a difference. Bufikeja Am Sufi Muse Amsakh, on the 23rd of May, and on the 24th of May 2014.